What if we could cut construction project duration in half and we already had the methodology to do it? Well, today I have Professor Olli Seppänen, Associate Professor of Practice at Aalto University in Finland, joining me. He leads Finland's Building 2030 consortium with a bold mission to halve project durations through industrialised construction and is at the forefront of Construction 4.0. Olli, welcome. It's a privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, look, I'd like to start off a question by talking a bit about your career. So you've got an incredible mix of software and construction experience. Can you tell us a bit about your journey to date and after that also what you're currently working on?
So I came to construction by accident because I was graduating from business school when there was a recession in Finland, and the only work available during summers was construction labor. So I started as a construction laborer and noticed that this is horribly inefficient, and I was basically the waste. All my work was waste. I was taking apart and demolishing structures that had already been built, and I was hauling materials for people and trying to figure out who is where and so on, helping here and there. And I thought that, okay, this is the perfect place where productivity improvement is required. So I started a startup company focusing on construction scheduling and planning, and we started working on the location-based management systems back in 2001 when we started the company. And there was a professor at Helsinki University of Technology who got really interested, and actually I didn't know much about constructions here, so he privately tutored me in the evenings to learn the basics, and then we were able to also sell the software to 4 biggest construction companies in Finland, and it started to grow quite rapidly, and it also got interest in the United States and Australia. Professor Russell Kenley was our reseller in Australia back at the time, and then it was acquired by Graphisoft in 2005. I worked for Graphisoft for a couple of years, and then we did management buyout and formed Vico Software in the United States, and I moved to the United States and lived there for 8 years, and we were helping large hospital projects especially to implement building information modeling and location-based management. I'd been working on my doctoral thesis in the evenings and finished that in 2009 on location-based management. And that's how I got the opportunity to come to Aalto University in 2015. And now I've been continuing to work on location-based management, adding AI and IoT and other things to the mix, and formed the Building 2030 consortium, which was quite easy for me because everybody was my client from my business times. So it was easy to get connections and build a consortium of 16 companies and also have them set aggressive goals for themselves.
And so what are you working on right now? What are you most focused on? You got any projects you want to talk about?
We just got a funding decision on furthering digital situation awareness. So we have been doing digital situation awareness based on cameras and IoT sensors for some time. But the problem of those approaches is that they rely heavily on personal data of people. And in Europe, there's quite a bit of personal data legislation, and also the trade unions may not appreciate that we are collecting location information of workers and so on. So we are now trying a different way by focusing on material deliveries and turning a building into a massive scale by putting sensors in the concrete, and then we are able to measure the weight of every square meter in the building. So can we achieve a digital situation awareness by looking at how the weights are moving? We can identify easily with AI what are people and which weights are materials, and then we can use 360 cameras or fixed cameras to detect materials and QR codes on materials. And based on those, we hope to get pretty good picture of what's going on without actually tracking people.
Wow, that sounds very advanced work. So I really look forward to seeing where you take that. I want to talk a little bit about location-based management systems if we can. So you are the leading global authority on location-based management systems. Can you share what location-based management systems are and why it matters so much for how we deliver projects?
Yeah, they are actually in concept quite simple. construction projects are physical products, and it's all about dividing it into smaller pieces. And of course, the location, let's take an apartment building. That's maybe a simple example that everybody can understand. Every apartment could be a location, or every room of an apartment could be a location. The smaller you make the locations, the faster you can do your project, but also more painful. It is a little bit more painful to manage them if you go too small, right? So the idea is to get work flowing in parallel. In traditional construction project, you would manage an apartment building maybe by floor. But when you go down to apartment level, it means that every single apartment will have a crew working productively in that apartment, and they all move to the next apartment at the same time. It is called the takt time. For example, the takt time would be 1 day, and that means that every day everybody will move to the next apartment. In traditional construction project, you would have almost empty floors because everybody's given a full floor. You don't see anybody there, but in the last 2 months before commissioning, there's a huge amount of people everywhere fixing mistakes and catching up delays. So location-based project would be quite different. They would be kind of a balanced number of crews at all times. Every apartment would have one crew, and they would move at the same rhythm through the building, and there's no end of the project hurry. So you kind of divide that end of the project rush evenly over the whole duration of the project. And that's how you can get half duration and increased quality of the project.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. So in 2010, you co-authored the definitive textbook on the subject location-based management for construction, planning, scheduling and control with Russell Kenley. At the time, what gap were you trying to fill? And I guess now it's 16 years on. How have you seen the sectors changed?
Well, at that time, everybody was using activity-based systems, and many still are. So softwares like Primavera, for example, and critical path method, which are often required by contracts. And those are not very good for actually productive implementation of the work. So we separate project management purposes of scheduling, which is about the delays and how to figure out who is liable for delay. That's kind of the main emphasis by most systems. And these productivity-related systems, how to actually make the work flow most productively and get most out of your resources. So there was a gap that everybody was focusing on the project management, but the site managers who are actually running the project cannot really use those schedules. They're very good for negotiating with the clients about time extension claims, but not very good at actually directing the crews. And that was the main gap we were trying to solve. How to bring a practical tool to site managers so that they can talk about resources and how many crews are needed and improve productivity on the construction sites.
And when thinking about productivity, Olli, are there any patterns that you have seen, I guess, over your many years studying this area that really do slow down construction projects that you've seen?
Well, one is the planning itself, that there are so many buffers, unneeded buffers. Everybody's kind of adding contingency to all the durations. Actual work might take 1 day, but the contractor is saying 5 days because they are anticipating somebody else will cause them a problem. So everyone is baking in a lot of contingency in their durations. We have been doing these indoor positioning studies, for example, and a 5-day task requires just 30% time present in the work location. So it really could take 1.5 days if you were doing things productively. So because it's so difficult to get all the materials and all the designs and all the conditions in order before you start work, everybody's kind of based on their earlier experience, they are factoring in all these problems, and that causes long project durations. So that contingency adding behavior is increasing durations. And then, of course, the root cause, that why don't we have the design feasible on time? Why don't we have all the materials on time? Why there are so many extra materials on the work site that is interfering with the work? Why is the preceding crew not ready when the next crew starts? And why are they not providing quality work so that the next crew has the best productive circumstances to do their work? That there are a lot of kind of basic things. None of these things are very complex, but the problem is that there are so many of these things at the same time that it's very difficult for site management to keep a list of everything that needs to be done in order for production to proceed productively.
Now, I wanted to ask you a bit about methodologies. So our researcher here has advised me that your work on Takt production and last planner systems has over 4,800 Google Scholar citations. That's huge. How has this work supported the sector, and why does it matter that our industry understands methodologies and processes like this?
There are a lot of things that we don't know. I think the industry is quite... When they see something that works, they jump on it, and they typically read a little bit and then they go to do it. And I think our work as academics is to kind of anticipate and look at the problems that they are facing and try to bring more knowledge so that people are not stopping when they hit the first problems on the site. And we have some kind of handbook how to solve issues. So my research has mostly focused on production control, what actually happens when you are implementing location-based management on site. How do you control it when there are deviations? Because one of the problems we noticed early on is that people give up if they cannot follow the original plan. And we have been trying to bring knowledge about how these projects typically go. And typical location-based project doesn't go according to the original plan. There's too much variability in the process and too many random things. But the best projects which achieve good results, they are able to steer the project and kind of control it to get still most of the benefits, even though the final process is not at all like they originally planned. So this kind of knowledge we need to bring so people don't lose faith when the first problem happens on site. It's very easy to plan a location-based schedule, but much more complicated to actually make it happen. And that's where most of my research work has gone. While other researchers are maybe more in that theoretical planning area. I'm more in the practical, dirty business of actually making it work.
And so for a project manager or contractor who wants to start applying these methodologies, where should they begin? Like, what are some of the most common mistakes you see teams make early on with this?
I think there's a lot of textbooks and written materials and also consultants who can help people begin. I can give recommendations if somebody wants to start and don't know when to start, just contact me and I will help you get started. I think the most common mistake is to be too idealistic about it. Choose too aggressive goals for the first project. So I would advise that don't go for the smallest location size in your first project. Many companies are starting with 1 week takt time. And the floors that let's try it on floor level. Let's have 1 week per floor. And then when that works out and you have kind of some experience on the system, then you can start to tighten the screw and go to smaller locations and smaller takt times and start to get bigger benefits. Typically, there are so many problems with material delivery and other things that if you go to too small takt times too early, you will just end up in chaos. So it makes sense to start it easy and go harder in the second or third project when the team has some experience. So the most typical thing is to start too aggressively too early and then say that this doesn't work because there were so many uncertainties in the process.
Oh, that's very good advice. Thank you for that. So the next thing I'd like to chat to you about is how you lead Finland's Building 2030 consortium. And I believe that this consortium has a very bold goal to halve project durations through industrialized construction. So what does that actually look like in practice? And can you share any progress or successes that you and the team have seen so far?
Yeah, Building 2030 consortium, we started actually 10 years ago. So this is the 10th anniversary. Initially had 11 companies and Aalto University. We are kind of doing contract research with the consortium based on the topics that they choose. So they are paying an annual fee on our research. Then our doctoral students are working on those projects. And Takt production has been kind of a continuous theme. So every year there's at least one topic related to Takt production. This halving of construction durations was seen as a very aggressive goal, but actually last year there were already projects that achieved it, individual projects. not yet on scale. So there was a residential construction project that was finished in 6 months by one of the contractors and also exceeded all quality expectations. So it was better quality than any of the normal 12-month, 14-month projects. And it included a lot of prefabrication, of course, and Takt production principles. A lot of time went into preparing it. Even more, we have been focusing on reliability so that no project gets delayed. And I'm happy to report that last year, the consulting members didn't have any delayed projects. We have started in international comparisons, Finnish companies were quite reliable in the schedule already. I think it was 85% when we started, but now we got the first year with no delayed projects, 100% on time performance.
Wow. I might ask you about why the consortium started. I know here in Australia, we have some huge issues with not having enough housing right now, a huge shortage. And so there's a lot of pressure on the construction industry here in Australia to really become more efficient and be able to get more of those houses built. Is there anything that's driving you over in Finland wanting to find those efficiencies?
I think it's labor shortage is the key. We have an aging workforce and a lot of imported workers from other countries. Construction sites have biggest construction sites. We can have 18 languages on one construction project. Not everybody, almost nobody speaks Finnish, but many of the workers don't speak English either. So visual management and working through translators has become the norm. And it's only going to get worse. And we also have urbanization still going on. People are moving from countryside to cities, especially here to Helsinki area. Most of the people are living in the capital area, more are coming all the time. So there's the same housing problem. And of course, construction industry is a big part of carbon emissions in Finland. So it's a very important industry and we need to improve it. So those were maybe the motivations. I think the companies wanted to come because they have R&D departments, of course, but they are looking at immediate needs, maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, and they wanted something where we can think longer about big shifts, which cannot be implemented by one company alone, but needs kind of a critical mass of companies, everybody driving in the same direction. That was kind of the starting point for the consulting, that we would bring international benchmarking and ideas how to change the whole industry and not just individual companies.
And if you're able to say, where are you hoping the consortium will go next? What do you think you'll deliver to next, if you're able to share that?
I think the most impactful things have been process-related and management-related. But I really hope that we also get somewhere with technology implementation. So now that the AI tools are becoming more widely applicable, we really can transform some things, especially on the project management side, where there's even bigger shortage of labor. So we're kind of figuring out how to get more out of our project managers, because they're not enough. So integrating AI better into mix, integrating technology, getting digital situation awareness, IoT sensors where we need them, respecting personal data, of course, and then also look into robotics and how they could fit into our goals.
Which leads perfectly to my next question, because I do understand that you're very active in the construction 4.0 scene, and that's around the Internet of Things, AI and robotics on live sites. So where are you seeing these technologies are making a genuine difference today, and versus where it still has more promise than proof?
I think most of it is currently promise and not proof. I think the biggest impact we have received with this management-related things like Takt production. Everywhere else, I think the main problem has been that all the new technologies and apps, they typically require a user. So our consulting companies have said that the productivity of their management staff has not increased. They cannot provide any more revenue per person in managerial roles. than before technology. Because every time you get a new app, it kind of dilutes the management attention. Earlier, when they were doing checklists and papers, there was a rule that every time you bring in a new checklist, you have to take one out, or otherwise people are just doing checklists. At the moment, every time you get a new app, it just increases the number of apps you need to use, and they don't talk to each other. All the software providers are focusing on their app and not interoperability. It's kind of makes it very difficult for site people to increase productivity. Same information has to be entered over and over again and so on. So that's number one thing to solve. Every construction management software should speak the same language and have similar data models. Some kind of standardization is required. And we have been working on ontologies and semantic interoperability, but software companies have not yet implemented these ideas in their systems. And that's one key reason why it's still a promise. That we have a lot of great individual applications, and then there are these bigger suites of software provided by individual vendors, but many companies are hesitant to lock into one vendor. So I think it would benefit all the technology sector if the systems were more interoperable and plug and play, so that you can take one piece from one vendor and another piece from other vendor, and they would work together and share similar concepts. But we have seen some very good, for example, these 360 cameras that people are wearing on their helmets and documenting the site. They're very good applications on that front, and it is increasing productivity and working at the moment. So that's one good example. Of course, any drones are very good for getting exterior infrastructure, situational awareness, very good advancement. There you can measure material piles and document everything outside, figure out quality defects. Then there are these spot, for example, Boston Dynamics spot robot and similar robots, which can do survey tasks inside. They are not yet very popular because they are too expensive at the moment, but I think they have a lot of promise. And we have been investigating the Boston Dynamics spot, for example, for autonomous data collection, so that the robot can interact with the elevator, and based on other data sources, it knows where things are happening, and it can go and do targeted laser scans of those areas where production has had. There's a lot of promise in these IoT systems. I think especially in Finland, there's a big problem that concrete doesn't dry, and it's not safe to put floor coverings before the concrete dries. So we need sensors in the concrete and sensors in the air measuring temperature and humidity. Those sensors are coming commonplace. Now the concrete is drying better because people are able to in real time take actions to make sure that the humidity and temperature is on the right level in the environment. So there are many good kind of these point solutions, but what I'm hoping is that they will somehow get integrated into a system. And I think there's a lot to work to on that front.
Because I was just thinking when you were talking about that, about 20 years ago, I worked for a software company in construction. And I remember when they were building that software, how excited people were that they were able to digitize the architect's drawings. Now, obviously, that's, not something we get excited about today. But 20 years ago, people did get very excited about that because they were able to save so much time, no longer having to, put it into those big tubes and transport it by hand or have it couriered. So thinking about that over the last 20 years, what are some of the other things that you've seen technology has really, I guess, changed and transformed in the productivity side of construction?
I would say these building information models are probably the biggest deal. I would say that in 20 years we have achieved scale, so most projects, maybe not the simplest ones, they have a building information model and designs are getting coordinated, which is eliminating a lot of problems. So there has been a lot of progress on that area. And if we look at the biggest projects and the best projects, they are using building information models for prefabrication purposes, which is of course increasing productivity and shortening durations. And many are also using robotic total stations for layout, which makes it easy to build, to design without using tape measures like in traditional construction. You can have a robot point out the actual point, get very close to the actual design, which eliminates problems. So there has been a lot of progress on these areas in the last 20 years. But these new tools that are now emerging, they have not yet had big productivity impacts. But based on the experience with BIM, I assume that in 20 years we will say completely transformed construction. Because the technologies that are now coming into market, they have a lot of potential. They have just not reached that potential yet.
What is the one shift in how we plan and deliver construction projects that you believe will have the biggest impact on the industry globally?
Globally, I think when we look globally, we see strong areas in different aspects. So if we took all the best practices globally, we would already now achieve very good performance in construction projects. In Finland, I would say industrial logistics and implementing Takt production scale are still the keys and not some technology in the next 5 years. And industrial logistics has not typically been done in construction sites. But now, because of Takt production, everybody understands that material management is very critical part, and the general contractor and the owner need to be on top of it. You cannot give it to subcontractors to deliver their materials. So we are starting to see consolidation centers, very detailed quantity takeoffs on material level based on BIM models, and then coordinated deliveries in kits, bring everything a crew needs in a location to the location just in time every day if you have a takt time of a day. And I would say that these are the most important things. And of course, prefabrication, increasing prefabrication everywhere we can. Construction industry is quite slow to change, so I would say that we need to leverage those ideas which are already ongoing. Those are the three in Finland. I would say that other countries should also start looking more at Takt production. There are good initiatives in the United States, California, Germany, Norway, probably many other places I don't know about. But I would say that that's a good place to start the transformation. Because when you see that you can do without any new technology, you can do things 20 or 30% faster in your first project, then there will be appetite for more. And it's kind of a driver for development.
Oh, look, Olli, I want to really thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. You've really taken us through so much and balanced it both looking at the methodologies and the practicalities and really sharing with us how people can look at the efficiencies and productivity in the construction industry. So thank you so much for taking the time to share all of this for our viewers today.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to know more about construction and get all the professional tips, tricks, and AI advice from real construction project managers, follow this channel for more insights.